right into it because this is our third one. I feel like we're becoming like a co-show.
Yeah. It's good stuff. It's good stuff, man. I'm enjoying it.
I know me and you had talked about it a little bit now before. So I think just to kind of get into the meat and potatoes of it, because I'm pretty sure, I mean, just to kind of how crazy it was that me and you had talked about it. My friend at the same time, he asked me a question about his background in alcohol, something to do with alcohol. But then he posted something where when I get a chance, I'm gonna tell him like you shouldn't be posting stuff like that because the way it looked was almost like if you're trying to say you don't have a problem, but the thing you're posting was like you do have a problem. Like I'm like, hey, you got to be mindful of what you're kind of saying and what you're kind of so. I think it was interesting. That was right, like literally maybe a day or two ago before me and you were going to do the podcast. And I thought, I'm like, damn, man, a lot of guys kind of, because even the way he comes off to me a little bit is like, it's not an issue. But it's like, well, the way you posted it, it sounded like an issue.
Yeah, you got to be careful how you post stuff.
Yeah.
So you want me to just kind of jump right into it, man? Like how all the downward
Yeah,
spiral started?
maybe what was before you maybe started drinking, or were you just like, were you a casual drinker, like a one or two, or old school like my dad, where they're taking like a a 6-pack after work? Or
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in a family without alcohol.
Okay.
Neither one of my parents drank. I didn't drink in high school, and I really didn't start drinking in college until probably my junior year. And so I was kind of like that straight-laced kid, didn't want to get in trouble, all that kind of stuff. But alcohol in the beginning was a way for me to like loosen up because I'm kind of an introvert, and I'm kind of, I don't know, man. I hate to use the word like peer pressure, but it was more of like I met some guys in college. I was on ROTC, like the whole army thing. So I kind of started hanging out with dudes more like me, but they all drank. So I thought, well, what the hell? I'm going to start drinking too. And to answer your question, in the beginning, it was more of just a social thing, man. Like I would only drink at parties or at bars or places where groups of friends were going. So I didn't drink at home. I didn't drink, just to function because I was all into fitness. I had a goal to join the Navy, so I was really locked in on my running, my swimming, training, all that kind of stuff. So I don't think I really abused it until later in life, when I was probably more in my early to mid 30s is when I really started to kind of go on the downward spiral, just you could say, I guess.
Well, there was a guy when I was in Fort Lewis. He was this guy named fucking Bates. I think he's in the medical field now. I remember him. He could drink every night and then go out and max out our PT test. Like in the military, sometimes it comes off almost like casual, and you're kind of like, is something wrong with me? I can't. There's no way I can drink.
It's almost like a performance enhancer, dude. It's kind of crazy, but yeah. But I think too, like our generation coming up, man, like you were seen as more of a badass if you could drink a lot and then you could still perform. So it was like a way to kind of, I think it was almost a way people would test you, to see if you go out and party and then you're still going to be able to show up. In the old days, I don't know how it is now, but I think kids nowadays are too afraid to do drugs or drink. They're all vaping and all that stuff. I don't know. But
now they're doing all kinds of weird shit. No, but I think it is like you said, especially in the military culture. It wasn't a crazy amount of drinking that I remember seeing, but I do remember that I definitely after like a 4-day weekend, it was always like a long run. You know what I mean with this with the CO, and you could smell like the whiskey, coming out of people's bodies.
That's like when I was in OCS, man, we got liberty after the first 4 weeks. So we'd go out in town. We were in Pensacola. So we'd be at the beach, be drinking, acting a fool. And we had to wear uniforms, man. So like, it was a way to bond. It was a way to kind of, hang out outside of work hours and all that. And it was a big part of the culture. And I'm sure it probably still is, but
there's definitely like camaraderie. Like you get to, like you said, some guys it's their first time being away from like home. They're in it's very different for men. That's why I think it's a good experience. For women the same, but you're with people you don't know. You're in a different environment. Everyone's a little bit more aggressive, more, Everyone's trying to prove themselves. So you definitely have to like sometimes be able to like also relax and kind of once you get to know everybody and I can so yeah I never saw too much craziness out of the drinking, but I actually know what I do remember having a guy and he didn't stay with me that long because when we were sharing a room, he was like one of those guys that would wake up at night and like fucking piss all over the place when he was drunk, and he did it twice. The first time he did it, I didn't know what he was doing. I just heard like water hitting the ground. So then the next day he was his girlfriend said something like, "Oh, I'll clean it up, this and that." And so I talked to him because we weren't even in the same platoon. Like they eventually did, our barracks like was Alpha Bravo Charlie. So I was in Charlie company in second platoon. So they did our platoons by like that, like kind of close together. And I remember having to the second time he did it, I was like, "Hey, what's going on with you?" And he kind of told me, it's kind of funny because I didn't think about it till you said it. He said, "I have a drinking problem." Because I remember him being a little bit older than me because I was 18, 19, and he was probably 27 around that age. But he looked really young, he looked super young. He was like, "Yeah, I think I have a drinking problem." So I had to go back and with my squad leader and I said, "Hey, you need to send dude to another room because I know he has a drinking problem, but if he pisses on me or something, I'm gonna fucking like we're gonna have an issue." So it's crazy. I didn't think about it till you said that about the military.
Yeah, that's funny.
So basically just in that, so it was just casual kind of drinking. What do you feel at what point did it become, I guess, more like was there an event or maybe something that pushed you to where it became more than casual? And I think it's to me, this is just my feeling. Sometimes if you drink by yourself, I feel like that's when it starts becoming like more like I like, okay, is it something going on or you're thinking about something, or I don't know what point was that for you?
I think where it really kind of probably started to happen was after my first divorce. I kind of realized that. So I got into some trouble off duty as a police officer, ended up resigning. I got divorced. And honestly, the result of the trouble was being drunk, drinking. But I think once I kind of got through that divorce and was on my own, I really started to just feel like a piece of shit, man. Like my life was falling apart. I had trouble finding another job. I didn't really have a purpose. And then I was trying to figure out how to raise my daughter as a single parent. And the divorce was my idea, so I'm not blaming my first wife on it. But I think that's probably when things started to I started to make even worse decisions, and alcohol was usually the root of that. So I saw it as a way to just numb. And kind of what I've learned through this whole healing process is I had a lot of childhood trauma that I never addressed or dealt with, and it would kind of come out when I was drunk. So I'm the kind of guy that like you and I could go, like if I was still drinking, you and I could go to a bar, I could hang out, have a good time because we know each other, we're cool with each other. But also the version of me was if you bumped into me or you looked at me wrong and I was drinking, I was going to get in a fight or I was going to say something. I was going to talk some shit. And a lot of times I wanted to look for it. That is stupid, especially if you're a cop or you're in the military, because you're potentially going to lose your career if you get in a bar fight. But I just had all this like just pent up rage, man. And when I would drink, it would usually come out, but I also was trying to like numb just all the shit inside of me. And my failed career in the military haunted me for a long time. So when I lost that job as a police officer, I kind of had these two careers that did not work out like I thought they would. So I just felt lost, man. And alcohol, it was an escape, but it was obviously the wrong way to deal with my problems. Instead of me going to a therapist and saying, "Hey, what the hell is wrong with me? Like, why can't I just figure out my life, or why can't I do this?" And before I forget, I want to add this piece. I wasn't going to church. I wasn't praying to God, like, "Hey, help me out through this. I need you." So my faith was non-existent at that point. I mean, I still believed in God, but I didn't ask him for help. I just tried to figure it all out. So
Yeah, you're just trying to go through, kind of just going like, I want to say sometimes like for men, we just kind of like try to will ourselves through it, like our own willpower.
yeah.
With that first divorce, was alcohol also kind of a contributing factor to that, where you're already kind of going down that path, and that's what kind of was I know with marriages, I mean, there's a lot of factors that just play into that. But was that something where, like, looking back now, do you think that was a contributing factor to maybe like your frame of mind and what was already why you were feeling away, or was it just kind of a because it sounds like that was almost maybe a tipping point again for you, like for you, once I guess you became so between the law enforcement, I guess, and the police officer, it kind of sounds like you kind of were new. I guess it was somewhat of a problem, but it was more just dependent, I guess, the environment you were in to where it could become an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think like she and I would partied a lot before we were married, and and she was cool. I mean, she's fun to hang out with. Like, she's always got along with all my friends and stuff. So there were moments in the marriage where I was drunk and I would say something stupid, or I would yell and scream and all that. But I don't think it was really, as far as a divorce goes, it was more of me. Like, I didn't want to live anymore. I felt like a failure. I wasn't happy. And for me, it was more just, I wanted a fresh start. I wanted a whole new life. And I think it was more of my own issues internally than it really was the alcohol. The alcohol didn't help it, but it didn't cause a divorce. It was just me. I think she would have stayed with me no matter what I did. She was that type of woman. So I could have done whatever, man. And she would have been, it was almost like a typical, like, old school biblical marriage, kind of where, I always was in charge, and it's going to piss off people. It triggers people. Always, he's controlling, but she kind of it was just kind of like that, man. So I think I could have done whatever the hell I wanted to, and she probably would have still be there, So, she never said you have an alcohol, she never came up to me and said you have a drinking problem, or, I'm afraid of you when you drink. But the alcohol definitely played a huge role in why I lost my job as a cop. I'll say that. I don't want to get into it too much, but like, I got into some major trouble, dude, like at a work party, off duty. So alcohol was a catalyst for it, for sure.
No, but and that's the thing people forget sometimes is, like, especially you see a lot of, I honestly think the best police officers have usually flaws, because then when they deal with people, they can come from a place more of understanding than a place of like, I think I'm better than you. And that's what I get out of it. And I try to tell people, and it's, my advice always to young officers was to not drink, and because of that reason, because there's so many stimulants going on. Like, you're in a new career, if you don't have good control of your ego or whatever, you can feel like untouchable, or almost like, I'm here now. It's what I've been working towards. Your responsibility level is super high, and then you're seeing like traumatic shit depending on where you're at. There's going to be a level of seeing things that you've never encountered before, and now you're making a lot of judgment decisions and be able to kind of weigh those. So I can definitely see, like that. And it's not the first time. I mean, there's a lot of guys that I knew had run into alcohol issues. Even when I was a captain, we had to deal with a couple people like that, and pretty bad stuff. Good guys, like solid guys, just couldn't. But for whatever, and I never, when we'd have conversations about it, I don't really know. It seemed to be things how they felt inside that would lead to it. And because sometimes there was one guy, which was weird, because he did it when he got promoted, so it wasn't even a bad thing. And when I started thinking about it, I thought about, damn, did this happen, like this kind of episode with him, because he's feeling pressure because he's getting promoted? You know what I mean? Like, not something bad happened, but the pressure internally of like, dang, I'm getting promoted and I got to be more responsible. And it was crazy because he was getting promoted. He had some good family stuff going on. I don't want to say what it is, just because people that know would probably know who he is, but it was nothing bad. So when they approached her, like, hey, this is going on with them, this is where he's at, I was like, what? like, you know what I mean? So it's kind of crazy, I guess, the pressure you can feel internally to drive you to that point.
Well, and I think some people, and myself included, I never felt worthy of success. So it was almost a way for me to self-sabotage when I was on the verge of doing something that, maybe that would lead to success. I think I would almost, in a way, on purpose, like, try to sabotage it because I didn't feel worthy of it. And I saw that as a business owner in the early stages when I started a business, like that was really when my drinking got really bad, because I just didn't feel worthy of it. I felt I was a piece of shit. I was a failure. And so it's crazy, man. Like when you don't focus on your mental health and ask for help, and you try to just do it on your own, I mean, it's easy to fall into like bad habits and make really bad decisions, when your
Were you able
perspective.
to were you able to function like on a regular?
Oh yeah, dude. Yeah. So I was like, yeah. So with the alcohol, I could, like you kind of talking about like being in the military, like I had a clock in my head. So like on Sundays, when I was at my worst, I knew in my head, okay, I got to stop drinking at 4 p.m. because I have to get up at 4 a.m. So I would drink pretty much the whole day, and then I would shut it down. So I would really only drink on the weekends. I didn't, because I mean, I had to be at work, when it was at its worst, I had to be at work every day at 5 a.m. So I knew during the week, and plus I was training hard, I was eating healthy. So I knew like if I boozed it every night, I couldn't maintain that. So I had the discipline to know what it would do to my physique and how it would affect me going to work. But I didn't have the self-awareness to realize like, hey, you're ruining your personal life because you're dependent on alcohol. I didn't see it that way. You know what I mean? Like I was able, like, I'm the type of person, if you told me you can't do this, I'll go do it. I'll be like, fuck you, I'll go do it. So that's kind of the mindset I had, especially when it came to drinking. I was like, I can balance all of this. I can party on the weekend, and then I can go to work during the week. I can be present for the kids. I can do whatever I need to do. But when Friday, Saturday, and Sunday roll around, I'm going to get drunk, because I hated my life. I hated where I was. I hated my second marriage. So it was an escape, man. And that's the dumbest thing for all the men out there listening right now, is not worth it, man. Because I wasn't grateful. I didn't appreciate what I had, I wanted something else.
And the only reason I was asking about like could you perform is because I feel like a lot of people that have I don't know if you would call it an addiction. I guess I don't know what word you would feels more comfortable with you, but they tend to be like high performers on some point. You know what I mean? Like that's what I noticed is like they're almost like and I see it a lot in the gym. I've seen it as a cop. I've seen it in different fields where it's like their addictive personality will make them excel in certain things like working out, their job, but then when they do something like negative, they also go there's either all or nothing. Like I'm going all. That's why I was kind of asking, because I was like, man, it's just because the way you kind of strike me, and the way people that I've seen do it, that's where like the guy that I was talking about, that that he was getting promoted and things like that. It was very much like good performers show up to work, do all their stuff, but then it was also, there was just like it would just be like, okay, like one day they're just battling their demons, and then that might last for a certain amount of time, and then they'd come back again, and so it's kind of this weird kind of dynamic. But then you kind of realize, well, what's I guess the underlying thing. And my friend Doug, he used to tell me he had because he didn't, was he vaping? He was vaping when I knew. Well, first he was into coffee, and then he started doing vaping. But he told me that he used to drink a lot when he was younger, and so then that became, so in order to stop drinking, he was drinking a lot of coffee, and then that kind of led to, so that kind of made me always think like, well, it's probably just like you have addictive personality, so it really depends on what you're filling that void with. You know what I mean?
And I'm still that way. And for me, like, drinking was a competitive sport. If you and I were at a bar, I would be like, I never just had one drink. I like things in pairs. Even to this day, when I buy stuff at the grocery store, I usually buy stuff in pairs. But if we're at a bar drinking, I'd be like, come on, man, let's get another beer. Let's get another beer. Let's, like I would do that. Or I would play, I'd play games. Like, I would it's hard to explain it, man, but it was like, it was a competitive sport, but I never called out sick because I was hungover. It never jeopardized. Like, I still ran a business. Even when I was a cop, I never missed work because I was hungover. When I was in the military, I still got up, I PT'd, I showed up for formation. I never it never affected me in a way that would inhibit my job. And to be clear, I resigned as a police officer, but I got in trouble off duty. I didn't get in trouble working, but it was a department held Halloween party off, at someone's apartment complex. But it was all people from my department. So it was all people I worked with, but we were off duty. So it wasn't like I came in off shift and was like, oh, I'm hungover or I'm drunk or I had a drink in the car. I don't know, man. But I was kind of raised with like this, like my mom was a social worker, right? So like growing up, we always heard these horror stories of what alcohol did to families. And we were really, really religious growing up. So the church I was raised in, alcohol was a no-go. So we never saw it, man. I had no relationship with alcohol as a kid or around my parents. So like, I kind of always saw it as, oh man, that's kind of cool. Like I want to drink. I want to be like this guy, or, I don't know how to explain it. It was dumb. It was a dumb mindset, but that's just kind of how it was like. It was almost like it was off limits, but I wanted to do it. I was like, I want to be a cool guy. I want to be, I want to get drunk, but still be able to run a marathon. Dude, I ran my first, and I should tell you guys this on the show. I ran my first half marathon at 24 years old, and I was still drunk when the race started. Hey, I was out all that, and I saw that as like, well, I want to be a SEAL. It's mental toughness. I could run a race. That's fucking stupid, man. It's stupid, but that's what I thought. Hey, and I did it.
No, I believe it. That's why I'm telling you. Like the guy that I was with in the military, Bates. He used to do just create like that same thing. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I seen guys do it. I seen guys be hungover, smoke a cigarette, go max out a run or kill, and you're just like, and you're kind of like, bro, I can't imagine what you could do if you were like 100%.
Yeah, I know. Probably not as good, man. Wouldn't function as well.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, but I don't know, man.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So once all that stuff happened, what? I guess in a sense, if you want to get into it, like, so it kind of seems like from what you're saying, a lot of the drinking was driven by, I guess, internal issues that were going on with you. And were those just things that you felt like it didn't really matter what point you were at in your life, that eventually they would kind of rear their head and kind of start coming out again? So they kind of, it seems like, but I don't know if I'm reading that wrong. You would know.
It was kind of those things, like I was sexually abused as a kid at 5 years old. And I never dealt with it, man. Well, let me take that back. It happened when I was 5, and it happened again when I was in probably 2nd or 3rd grade. Different people, different living situations. But it was one of those things that happened, and I kind of just like, I stuffed it in a box. But I'm going to get heavy here for a second. So like at a really young age, I just kind of had this, I hated myself. I just felt like unclean, like something was wrong with me. And I was trying so hard, man, to like go above and beyond and do something spectacular with my life. But I always just felt weird. I just didn't feel like I fit in. And growing up in a military family, we moved a lot. So I always it was hard, like, going to different towns, and we were overseas for a while, then we moved to the States. And so I just always kind of was kind of down on myself a lot. And was really hard on myself. So I always had these really high expectations, and I still kind of do that today. So I think once I started, I joined the Navy. I didn't get through training. That was really hard for me. And so that's when that failure started creeping in. That's when that whole, like, you're just a piece of shit, dude. You're a clown. And so then when I got into law enforcement, it wasn't good enough. Right. So instead of me being grateful, and you know how it is, man, becoming a cop is not an easy process, no matter if you're a veteran or not. It took me 6 months to get a job, but I saw it as like, this isn't the same. I'm back in my hometown where I don't want to be. And so like all of these things just kind of started compounding, and I wasn't constantly thinking about the childhood stuff, but I know it was the underlying reason of why I would act out the way I did when I would get drunk. Because I had a death wish, man. I didn't want to live. Like I fucking hated my life. I didn't want to be back home. So when I was a cop, I was married, worked at a decent department in a nice area, but it wasn't good enough. So I was constantly like looking for something else. And I think for me, it was the adrenaline rush when I would drink. It was like I was seeking this like thrill, man. And it would make me kind of make decisions that were not good at all. But it just continued to get worse. So that childhood trauma continued to, I think, build on top of that. And so as I got older, not dealing with it. And I would go to therapy, you know, here and there and stuff, but it was more of like, I was told to, or like when I got in trouble off duty, I had to go to court mandated anger management. So I went to it, but the only reason I went was to get the charges dropped. You know, I was like, I don't give a fuck. I want to get charges dropped. So, and it worked. I got charges dropped. They threw out the case. And so, yeah, man, it was kind of carrying like a backpack of all this just, you know, shame and low self-esteem, whatever you want to call it. And it would just kind of, it would come out in really bad ways. And I didn't, like, my second ex-wife wanted me to like go to marriage counseling, wanted me to go to these courses. And I was like, man, this is fucking stupid. Like, I don't want to, like the thing that I'm doing now, hosting a podcast about men's mental health. I used to make fun of that shit, man. I thought I was stupid. I did. I thought it was stupid. Like, that's weak as hell. And now I look back and think, damn, you're an idiot, man. Like, what was wrong with you? But it's just that childhood shit.
Well, I think I think most of the time is like when we're with them, like as men, like before. I don't think so now, where you're kind of just whatever you're dealing with, you just deal with it. You know what I mean? Just kind of drive through it and things like that. But I mean, I definitely you know, I can't, that feeling I think you're talking about from like with your experiences when you're younger, it kind of reminds me, I think what me and you're talking about, like it wasn't the same thing, but I think coming up, I always felt, I think a lot of what drove me initially in the beginning to like join the military and do good was more that like, I think it's that void, like, you know, with as I always tell people like this, with my dad, when he wasn't around, my biological dad, I think you almost feel the need to prove something, like I need to prove to myself that I'm worthy of whatever you didn't, you know, get. And a lot of people I don't think understand that never missed that. And that's something where I always tell people, like when you don't have something and you're missing something and you see other people that have it, like for you it could be just the normal part of your childhood, right? People, they don't really know how that feels, how that kind of hurt or whatever feels to you. So you kind of have to deal with it in different ways, because I think I told you in our last podcast, when it wasn't until my daughter was born that I felt like I could let go of like being mad at my dad and kind of like focus on loving her. And to me, that's where I felt it all kind of go away, where I stopped feeling the need to like prove myself in anything. Cause I did feel that kind of like drive to like, I'm gonna, if someone wants a fight, I'm gonna fight them. I'm gonna do the hard shit. I'm gonna prove that I'm gonna be like, because in my mind it was like, my dad's a pussy and everything that I'm gonna, everything that he wasn't, I'm gonna be. So, but once you kind of let that go, you kind of realize, you know, now you're open, like you said, like going. I think whether it's church or talking about it or podcast, whatever, taking away, like you don't really get anything from it unless you're actually trying to hear it. I think if you're, you know what I mean? I think when you're kind of just like I saw this funny thing, but it was more pertaining to girls. It was like, you know, if you're in a fortress, ain't no guy trying to like break down those walls to try to get to know you. You know what I mean? And that's the same thing with guys when we're kind of in our own feelings. If everything's really guarded, it's hard to get to what the root, you know, issue is. I mean, you bringing that up, I think is awesome, because I think a lot of guys that maybe have gone through similar experiences, they don't really talk about it as much. I've never really seen it in the podcast space, and I think me and you always kind of talk about everyone's talking about their highlight reel of their life. You know what I mean? I was, you know, I did this and I did that, and that's fine. It's not taken away from that, but we also know that if you actually live the life, there's a lot of things that happen in the background that aren't highlight reels.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I mean, to your point about proving yourself, that was one of the main driving factors for me why I wanted to be a SEAL, because I thought if I get that trident, people are going to respect me, and I'm not like everybody else. But I still had like I just put more pressure on myself, and so when I didn't get it, that's when it just came off the rails, man. Like I just, I think what I want people to take away from my story is, you know, go get help. Don't try to do it on your own. Don't white knuckle it. You know, it doesn't make you less of a man to not ask for help, because I had to hit rock bottom and lose everything for me to finally get my act together. And I hit rock bottom twice in my life. The first time I did it on my own, thought I had it figured out, but it took me to go through even a worse period of time where I finally got on my knees and told God, like, I can't do this. Like, I need your help. That's when I finally surrendered to Christ, because before that I knew Jesus, but I was like, yeah, all right, I got this. I'll figure this out. I'm a survivor. I'll figure it out. But I mean, everything had to kind of be removed from my life for me to finally say, yeah, I can't do this. The pride was the biggest reason for me to drink and to behave the way I did, because I was so full of pride, because I was trying to like not face who I really was, or what happened to me as a kid.
So to kind of get to like the middle part of the story, so the Navy thing, when that didn't work the way you wanted it, and you became a police officer, and then things kind of started happening that led to the, leaving that position. Was that where you were at? Like, that's the point that kind of like broke the camel's back, or like that, like you said, that was like the where you kind of I guess that I don't even say coming to Jesus moment, but that's what it sounds like. Was that like the point where, or did you go farther than that? Because I know I've heard people where they're like, you would think like, damn, this is where they're at. And they're like, nah, I went.
No, I went further. I went worse. I went way worse,
Yeah.
man. Yeah. So I when I left the police department, I kind of did some like part-time work, tried to find a job, and I was looking at going to another department. Thought I had the job. I never lost my post certification. I don't know if the listeners know what that means, but so I was still a certified police officer, and I was going to go to a different department. Went to the interview, crushed the PT test, thought, okay, I got this. Like it was a department close to the one I just left. And I didn't get the job, and I was dating my so I've been divorced twice. I was dating my son's mom, and she said, what do you want to do? Because I don't think you really want to be a cop. And I told her, I said, well, I think I want to do personal training, but it's hard to earn a living doing it. And she told me, she said, if that's what you want to do, I'll support that. Basically what she meant by that was she would pay the bills, because we were living together. And so I started, this is a long story, but I had a CrossFit gym with a buddy. We had the first CrossFit gym in our area back then. And I decided to take like some of the space, and I went back into personal training, which is what I did before I joined the military. And so I started building a business, man. And that shame and that weird thing in my head came back around. When I started getting busy, it was like I didn't feel worthy of it. So I started to drink more and more and more, because it's weird, man. Like I was starting to become successful, right? But I was depressed because I felt like I was excited, but I still wasn't happy with my life. Like I wasn't grateful, and I guess I couldn't be satisfied. You know what I mean? So I started to get busy. I started growing this business, and that's when I found bourbon. I never drank it when I was younger. I had some clients that were bourbon collectors, and they kind of got me into it. And I would just do dumb shit, man. Like, I mean, I would like, just pass out places, and that I only did on the weekends. So my drinking started to really take off. And by this point, I started the business at 14. That was 12 years ago, and I'm 46. So what is that? I was like 34, 33. Yeah. So I was old enough to know better. But yeah, man. So that's really when the drinking started to take off. And but it was controlled enough to just be on the weekends. But I would I never got arrested. I never got a DUI. I never got in an assault charge or anything. Like I wasn't like so out of control that I was getting in trouble with the law, but it was more like it was just me coming off the rails and not being a good man, I guess is the best way to put it. Like I was very selfish, but it was my way of, I was like self-medicating with it, versus trying to like realize, hey man, you've already been divorced. You already have a daughter from your first marriage, and now you're going to get married again, which is probably going to lead to having another kid. Maybe it's time to grow up and be a man, but that's not how I saw it, man. Unfortunately, it didn't straighten me up. So I didn't to answer your question. I kind of got long-winded. When I went through my second divorce is when I finally hit rock bottom enough to give my life to Christ again. Because I had a major accident, which is what stopped my drinking career. And I can get into that if you want me to, but that's when I started my whole sobriety journey. I actually got hurt. I had to go to the ER. And that's when I was given an ultimatum, like you either pick your family or you pick alcohol. So I said, all right, I'll pick my family. and I quit drinking. You know, that was
Yeah,
on. Okay.
We can definitely get into it. I think that would be a good thing. I just want to know, I guess, did you ever reach out to anyone, or did anyone ever say anything to you? Because sometimes I'm always interested in, like, to me, I know if someone was my friend and I kind of felt like with guys is there, I guess sometimes women don't understand that with guys the way it is. Like sometimes you can have you with guys you can tell someone like you're doing too much. But if they're not gonna listen, sometimes guys are just like, you're kind of like, okay, bro, like, well, when you're ready to listen, like, I'll help you. But sometimes, you're already on your trajectory to like to wherever you're going. And so I'm just interested if there's anything that any conversation or anyone that you talk to that sometimes resonated with you. Because I think sometimes in hindsight, sometimes we have conversations with people or things happen where in your kind of your moments of when you're kind of like, oh, like you're done, that you kind of reflect on those things and you're like, yeah, this, I realize this person was trying to help me, and maybe that advice kind of echoes, or because I think the same thing you're saying, like the echoing of the you don't deserve this and that. To me, it's like that's, I think, always with ourselves, that's always something that's in everybody, and I think that's like self-doubt or like I want to say it's evil, but you know how they talk about, especially if anyone that like listens to the Bible, it's like the devil's influence is never through making you do things, it's like through suggestion. You know what I mean? So I think anytime you feel, I mean, like I can say that from like even doing this kind of stuff that me and you doing, when you're starting like a podcast or business, right? There's a part of you that's like excited to do it. You're like, I can do this. And there's a part of you that's like, what are people going to think? What are people going to do? And you have to kind of like have that good voice has to be the stronger voice and be like, well, I can't care about that. I got to focus on this. But for some people, it's not like that. Sometimes it's like half and half. So I just wonder if you ever had any good like friends or conversations, or did you isolate yourself more away from people to kind of keep doing what you're doing? Because I know guys sometimes do that too. Like I was telling you about my friend where I didn't see him for like almost like 10 years. So if I would have seen him going through all of that stuff, I would have told him like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah. Before I answer the question about a friend, I want to make this point real quick because you brought up evil and Satan. So I never felt like I would ever get to heaven, right? So there was a part of me, I was always obsessed with the dark side. I never worshiped Satan, but even as a Christian, I never thought I would get there because I didn't feel worthy of it. I always felt like less than. So I don't know, man. I almost would do things because I felt like I was already going to hell. And so I was afraid of God. Like I didn't think God would listen to me. Like I thought God was mad at me. So I'd kind of like all or nothing, dude. Like I'd kind of just be like, yeah, Satan, I know Satan well. And I'll just admit on this podcast, I have been spiritually attacked. I didn't understand it when I was in my drinking days, but yeah, I have a very intimate relationship with the enemy. And when I started this podcast, I got attacked because we're trying to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ, and he don't like that. And I'm kind of getting off track, but with your question about friends, good or bad company corrupts good character, right? So when I was in my drinking career, the guys I hung out with never would pull me aside and say, dude, you need to slow down, bro. Like you are out of control. It was more my ex-wife would confront me and say, you've got an issue. Like you need to stop this. And so I actually quit. I got married to her in 2015. I quit drinking in, I don't remember the dates, but it was in 2016. And I was sober for about a year and a half, but I did it to prove her wrong because she said I was an alcoholic. So what I did is you mentioned this earlier. I got sober. So I basically put it all in the gym. Like my daughter, I had her joint custody. So there'd be like a week I wouldn't have her. Man, I dropped like 20 pounds. I got really lean. I just started hitting the gym every day. And I remember my ex-wife saying, you're addicted to Diet Coke, because I wouldn't drink booze, but I would drink like a couple Diet Cokes a day, or I was addicted to ice cream. And I'd be like, man, shut the fuck up. Like, but I was trying to prove her wrong. I wasn't doing it to like improve my life. I was just like, you told me I can't do it, so fuck you. I'm going to do it. But then I eased my way back into like, we were on vacation one year down in Pensacola, or I went to OCS, and we were at McGuire's Pub. And I said, man, that beer looks really good. I'd love to have one. And she's like, well, you think you could just have one? I'm like, yeah, totally. So I had a beer. What'd that do? It like instead of me just kind of opening that door a little bit, I kicked that motherfucker down and was like, all right, I'm back. I started drinking again, man. So that's how I've always done it. I've like pushed the envelope. And as I've gotten older, I've realized I can't be like that anymore. I mean, I've got to, like, I didn't respect alcohol. I think you've got to, there's people that, and I'm not anti-alcohol. There's people that can drink alcohol and they can have a good time, have a drink, go home and call it a night. That wasn't Steve Morris. I was like, yeah, let's fucking do it. Let's go get drunk. But, so yeah, I didn't have any friends that pulled me aside. It was really my ex-wife, but it was more of the nagging thing. It wasn't like, hey, I think you maybe should go talk to somebody because this isn't normal. And she knew about the childhood stuff. She knew about all that. And she was a cop too. So y'all listening out there, man, y'all think real hard before you start dating a cop if you're a cop, because that's some wild shit, dude.
That's a negative ghost rag.
Yeah. That should be a PSA, man. Y'all stay away from that shit. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Well, yeah. I think you're right. Good company can correct, or bad company can correct.
Negative ghostwriter. I love
that. Yeah. Yeah, but it's definitely, that's so crazy. You know, it's like, that's what I always try to, I don't, for myself, I feel like anyone I've ever been around, and maybe that's why I'm always kind of selective with the people that I am around. I'm not that friend that will let you crash out in front of me. Like if I see you doing something, like I'll definitely either, like, if you're gonna do it, like, don't do that shit around me, or if you're gonna be my friend, like, I'm gonna definitely, you know, say it to you, not in a ever disrespectful way. I mean, it depends on who it is, because obviously every guy reacts differently to different things. But you know, my friend Juan. So when I went to basic training, my friend Juan, he spent the night at my house. We had a party the night before I went to basic training, and he was a year younger than me, so he spent the night at my house. And that was like, you know, high school shit. And when was it? I went to the field when I was in Fort Lewis, and then when I came back, I had all these messages. And then what had happened with him was that he had went to a party. He drank so much that they drank so much he ended up passing out. They took him to his parents' house, dropped him off on the doorstep, assuming, I guess, that he would just, like, they would find him in the morning, you know, wake him up or whatever. But he ended up dead. He died from alcohol poisoning.
Holy shit, dude.
So I always think that was the reason that I never became, to this day, I can't drink alcohol without thinking about him. Wow. I think that was so locked into my brain about him that I could, like, say if you got, you know, we're at a celebration, I could drink a shot with you, but I've maybe been drunk in my life maybe 4 times, and I've never blacked out, never nothing. But I think a lot of that was because of my friend Juan. I think because of what happened with him, it prevented me from ever even being an option for me, because there was like this burned memory of. So, you know, I think even crazy, because, as you know, we talk about friends and things like that, like, you know, it kind of, I think him passing away, you know, did something that maybe it helped me, because I definitely at times, you know, when I was going through my own divorce or different times, you definitely feel that tug of like, oh, should I go party? Should I go do this? And you have guys that will tell you, like, yeah, let's go do that. And you know, I was always kind of, I guess weary enough to kind of to stay away from things like that. And I'm glad that I did, because I just don't think I would have been able to, you know, to function or get to where I needed to get with it. But man, that's that's crazy. But and then it was funny, the thing you said about the one beer. My friend Eric, because of the same thing with the addiction thing, he told me, he said that the best liars are addicts. He's like, we'll lie to ourselves and we'll lie to other people. He went into this whole spill about it a lot better than I am. He kind of said, like, he's a will convince. He's like, I will. He told me this story of where he went to a Pizza Hut with this guy, and they were waiting to do something. So they were both addicted to meth. They convinced themselves that they were to be addicted to alcohol. So what they did is they got drunk, and then convinced themselves that they needed to get sober to go to this meeting they needed to go to. So they did some heroin, because that would balance them out. And then he convinced himself that he needed to get, you know, I can't remember if it was he had to go back to like the sober house or wherever the sober living place. And then he convinced himself, well, I need to do some coke so that way I'm like focused. And so it was this constantly reconvincing yourself over and over and over that I'm doing this so I can do this, so I could do this to do this. And he broke it down this crazy way. And I was like, damn, that's so like not crazy, but just like how you can kind of walk yourself down the road. And he said, and to me and to himself, he said it totally made sense at the time.
That's hardcore, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not the same thing, obviously, drugs and alcohol, but I think I think sometimes that there was a guy that I worked with, and I won't get into all the stuff about him, but basically I remember telling him one time we had this conversation is like, you shouldn't open doors that you can't close. I think that was a conversation me and him had. Because I think sometimes you think as a man, I think, especially with guys that are more like us, the military or law enforcement, or been through some shit, you kind of tend to like walk that line a little bit more because you can, I'll know when to stop or know. But I always tell people sometimes you open certain doors and it's very hard to try to close those doors again. And I see that, and that's what I think some of the things we talk about when it comes to, guys that are getting too much into it. It's not even this, but like steroids or whatever is your vice, right? If you open that door, understand that it's not going to be as easy to close it once you start walking through it casually. So I think this is definitely a good thing. It's a good just even for me, just hearing you talk about it is like, damn, it's like this shit is probably the most deep as far as like a podcast conversation, where it's like where I'm learning a lot from it.
Well, and I thought of this while you were talking, and I'm gonna share this because we're both Christians. We both love Jesus. The thing I had to realize when I started to heal and I hit rock bottom was I was living for myself for most of my life, and as a Christian, you can't do that, right? You got to be filled with the Holy Spirit and live for the Lord. So if you live for the world, and this is going to ruffle feathers, but this is a black and white answer. Everybody wants to live in this gray world or this purple world, not red or not blue. But you cannot live for yourself and follow Christ. You can be a fan of him and you can acknowledge who he is. But if you truly want to die to yourself and live for Jesus, you cannot live for the world. And for all the listeners out there, Satan is the prince and the power of the air. This is his world. If you live for the world and you hang on all these celebrities and all this bullshit that's on social media and the news and all this stuff, that's his playground. Jesus wants you to be over here living for him. So you're not going to fit in with these other folks, right? We're going to talk about scripture, talk about the Bible, talk about the gospel. So in order for me to finally get my act together and heal, I had to realize I can't live for the world. I have to reject it. Now, I still live in the world because I'm human, but I have to do everything. I want to do God's will, not Steve's will. Because I'll be 100% honest with you, dude. Steve's will is not to live in Middle Tennessee. I want to be at the beach. I want to live in Florida. I love Florida. I have 2 kids. I have 2 older parents. So I have responsibilities as a man where I live now. And I want to do God's will. And it's not always easy. I don't always hear him. I don't understand him. But I ask him to show me, where do you want me to go? What do I need to do? Because I don't I don't get along with people all the time because I'm an asshole, right? But I mean, I just am. Like, I don't like drama. I don't like dumb shit. But I have to pray a lot in my head to be kind, loving, and gentle because it is hard for me to be in certain environments where I don't fit in or I don't like people. So I have to I'm not always the nicest guy, so I have to pray about it. So I'll be filled with the Holy Spirit and not be reactive when somebody says something stupid, respond in a way that's more Christian-like versus, I mean, there's been plenty of stuff I've seen online I love to just pop off about. We talk about people worshiping Star Wars and get mad about Jesus, but we can't engage with that stuff. So I think when you make the decision to die to yourself and follow Christ, you have to realize that life is going to be different. And one of the best pieces of advice I heard a long time ago was when you get sober, you have to learn to live with who you really are, because the version of yourself when you're drunk is not the real version of yourself. And I had to get to know myself again. So the guy talking to you today, John, was the guy I was in high school, but I hated that guy. So I tried to kill him and turn into this other person. Well, that other person I tried to turn into destroyed most of my life. So now I'm back to the guy I was in high school, right? Now I'm like, okay, I'm trying to live for Jesus. I'm not trying to be something that the world wants me to be. And I don't, it's weird, man. Like, I don't consider myself an alcoholic. I never did. And the reason I say that is because I was sober for a year when my second wife told me she wanted a divorce. So I've been sober for a year, basically on probation. And there was not 1 ounce of me that wanted to be like, you know what, I just want to go get drunk. I can't deal with this. I didn't. And I had a son. I knew if I did that, I would not have a relationship with my son. He's 7 now. So he was 4 when we were going through all this. And so I had to ask God for help, dude. And I think a lot of people like to paint that picture of people that struggle with alcohol. Oh, you're an alcoholic. You're an alcoholic because you got in trouble or you did this. I don't see it that way. Now there are people that are alcoholics, but for me, it was alcohol abuse on steroids. But I can walk down the aisle at the grocery store at Kroger and I can see beer and not go, damn, I want a beer so bad I can't stand it. Yeah. I don't have that in me anymore because I know, like, I want to be a good man for my son and my daughter, and I want to be able to show them, yeah, I messed up a lot in my life. I made a lot of mistakes, but I'm trying to turn my life around to be better. And I tell my son this a lot, like, I don't want you to grow up like me. I want you to grow up better than me. It's okay to make mistakes, but I don't want you to do the same things I did because I was too foolish to. And he doesn't know the ins and outs of everything, but I try to show him, like, it's okay to make mistakes in life. You know, you don't have to be perfect, and God loves you no matter what you do. So, you know, he's always going to be there for you. So I'm trying to, like, it's like a second lease on life, you know. And remind me to bring something else up when I stop talking, because everybody's favorite podcaster made a post a while ago that really bothered me, and I want to bring that up in this episode, but I'll do it later on. I'll let you talk for a little bit. But
no, I think I would say from hearing your story, I think definitely alcohol was just maybe the vehicle for you to, like, I'm gonna say your path of destruction, but it sounded like the other things was what led to it being there. Because I think everyone chooses their own. We're all kind of weak in our own ways and different things. And that's the thing I try to get people to understand about, because people really, I think, misinterpret what it means to be Christian or have faith or whatever. I keep hearing this thing of, like, well, if you're Christian, you're supposed to act Christian. It's like, you're not Christian and you don't even act like anything. So to me, you know what I mean? Like, that's my kind of, when I tell people, it's like, being Christian and being religious or having faith, whatever term you want to use for it, is really guidelines that you're trying to follow to kind of, keep your life on track. But we're human, so we all fall short. So that's why I try to tell people, I said, look at some of the most biblical figures in the Bible. And I said, the only one who was ever to maintain perfection that we know of was Jesus. Everyone else did different things along the way that either mess up. So that's how we are as men or women. And we all fall short of different things. So when you kind of accept that, you kind of learn that, hey, I got to try to maintain this path, but I understand that, whether it be like, there's going to be, you're going to always be kind of, there's always going to be opportunities to do things that you shouldn't or should do. And it's just going to really be for you to make those choices. And I think, listening to like your story, it reminded me a lot of, I had posted up a long time ago, it was like a quote where the chick, they call her Thug Rose, and she kind of said this quote because she was going to fight this one, I can't remember the fighter she was fighting, but she said that she used to use hate as a long time for energy, and then she started using love because she learned that hate wasn't a sustainable energy, that love was. That hate kind of just drives you towards hate. And that's kind of, I think, comes back to where when we're doing our podcast and our things like that, why I think I like your podcast and why I like what your message and what you're trying to do compared to, I know there's guys that are bigger than us, and anyone listening, I know there's guys that do, but the thing that I don't like about them that kind of drives me away from listening to guys I know is the drama and the negativity, because it's like, that's what we're all trying to get away from. I don't care if you're not 100%, on board with being religious, that's fine. If you're not 100% on board with being America First or MAGA, whatever you want to call it, there's a common ground that we can all come to kind of move forward ahead, that we can all eventually get to the place we're trying to go. But none of that place comes to me from negativity, a thousand conspiracy theories, all this other stuff. It's like they're losing track of what they're even trying to do. And I think that's why I like having, like, in all the times, because this is our third conversation, is because I think I see with you is that kind of like, hey, we're not, the same thing that I'm trying to say is, hey, we're not perfect. We're just trying to get to a certain goal, and we understand that we're human. That's why, hey, how can you go to, like, a lot of them is, how can you go to church and then tell someone that you're going to kick their ass? Because I can. That's why. Because I'm a person. You know what I mean? It's like you're trying to, you're most of the time you're going to try to do good. You accept you're not going to always meet that expectation. And I think a lot of this conversation shows that. It's like that kind of, that duality between, like, hey, I'm trying to do good, because going to the military, raising your kids, getting married, you're trying to do all the right things, and sometimes it doesn't work out. And I think for men and some women is when it doesn't, there's definitely that tug to now kind of spiral down. And I think I told you about it. I know I've told other people. There was this thing about how, it's not one loss, it's usually consecutive losses that can make you feel like you're losing, or that you're a loser, or whatever it is. It's like losing, hey, this didn't go the way I wanted. Okay, you kind of shrug it off. Now this didn't go the way I wanted. Now then it's like, fuck. Then this didn't go. Now all of a sudden you're faced with, like you said, you kind of hit it on the head. I think with, you're kind of with yourself. You're kind of with yourself, and I think any man, to me, I feel like any man or woman that has really gone through some shit knows what that means, where you feel very much alone. And it's not because your friends or your loved ones abandon you. It's because when you're losing, it can feel like that. Like, how do I get out of this situation? And I think that's a big, I think that makes or breaks people, honestly. Either you're going to rise up from that and you kind of look back at it and say, damn, like, I came back from that, or you're going to dig even deeper and just keep continuing to feel that way. So I think that this conversation is definitely something that needed to happen. I'm just curious too, to you, besides that, was there a certain just exact moment that you could pinpoint, like, this is the moment I decided to change, or was it just gradually over time?
As far as the alcohol?
Yeah, alcohol, just everything. Yeah. Like, that was, I guess, the turning point for you.
Yeah. So in October of 21, I had an accident, and I was basically was outside. I was getting drunk with my neighbor. And at the time I had given up hard alcohol. I was just drinking beer. And my wife at the time was gone with my little boy. She was gone, and he had some bourbon and was like, hey, you want a glass of bourbon? And I was like, she's not here. Hell yeah, let's do it. So I got shit faced, dude. Like, I got shit faced. And she comes home, was outside smoking a cigar. She could tell I was drunk, just started screaming at me, was pissed off. And so I stayed outside to smoke my cigar. Well, we had these plastic Adirondack chairs, and my driveway was kind of sloped in a weird angle. So I thought, well, I'll sit in the driveway, finish my cigar, and I'll go inside. Well, I go to sit in this chair, and for some reason, I didn't look at the chair. I put my hand out, like, to kind of like feel where it was. And the next thing I know, my feet are up in the air. So when I went to sit in this chair, it broke, and a piece of the plastic went through my face. So I get up, I kind of check myself, and I touch my face, and I realize I'm bleeding. Well, I kind of started to sober up, and I was like, well, shit. So I go in the garage, and I get some shop towels, and it won't stop. And so I call her, and she comes outside and thinks I'm throwing up. So she starts screaming at me, right? And then she realizes, oh, this idiot got hurt. And anyways, I had to go to the ER. And of course, they thought it was funny because I'm drunk. My head's all scratched up. So anyways, I got punctured in the face. I had to get stitches, all this kind of stuff. And we were already in marriage counseling at that point, but we ended up having a counseling session that week. And that's when the guy told me, he was like, look, Steve, you're an alcoholic. Like I said before, you got to pick your family or pick alcohol. So I said, look, I'll quit drinking. So I started out in AA. I had a friend. We had just got back into church a couple months before this happened. And I reached out to my friend, Eric. We worked at the police department together. And long story, but he was actually at this church we started going to, and he kind of helped start a men's group because of my experience. And so that's when I kind of realized, okay, I gotta make a change. That was kind of my aha moment. Like, dude, you're ridiculous. But yeah, I that's when I started listening to podcasts. I started reading books. I started journaling. I started like a whole morning routine. I started reading the Bible. So that was kind of my my moment when I started to embrace I just call it growing up, being mature and becoming a man. I started getting my act together. And I think God had a funny way of kind of like, I used to say Satan threw me out of that chair, right? But then it was put to me, and that wasn't Satan, that was God. God basically said, "Hey man, this is enough. Like, this is enough. You are a mess. You got to get your stuff together." And but I think what he was doing is he was preparing me. It's almost like going to a school. It's almost like going to a school in the military or college. Like, so for a whole year, I was on this journey of figuring out how to be sober, how life was going to be different. And then once that year of sobriety hit, that's when the bomb was dropped on me, right? That's when she said, I don't love you anymore. I don't want this anymore. And I was like, fuck. I never saw it coming, man. Never saw. I thought me getting sober, me getting in church, I turned my life around, and things weren't great between us. But I thought, man, I'm finally, going to be this like good husband. I was trying to be a deacon in the church, and then I got dropped with that. I think it was God. I think he kind of prepared me, because he knew if she'd have done that when I first had that accident, I'd have kept drinking, man. There's no way I couldn't have done both at once. So I think that was kind of God's way of. It's almost like a crucible, like baptism by fire. Like you got to prove to the world that you can stay sober, because you got a bigger test coming. And I said this on a podcast before, and I'm going to say it today. Going through that second divorce was way harder than quitting alcohol, man. It was way harder. Like watching another man with my son, just the whole thing, dude, was way harder than giving up alcohol. And that's another reason I don't think I was an alcoholic, because if I had to pick one or the other, looking back at it now, I would pick alcohol to quit over that, because that was way easier, man. That divorce was fucking brutal.
So you feel like if you hadn't took that year to kind of like get sober, not drink, go to church, all this stuff, basically like you would have, if you were already in the midst of still drinking, like nothing would have changed. But because you're almost like we're prepared for it. Like if she would have hit you with the divorce when you're already drinking, it would have just drove you down further, where that at least that was almost like, I don't say training for a fight, but you were kind of already, kind of more mentally, physically, spiritually prepared. And I think that kind of goes back to what I always tell sometimes, I guess, with people when you want to know about, I guess, true strength, right? In someone, like God will give you he's not going to make you stronger. It's not like he's going to give you a shot. He's going to give you the chance to be strong, kind of thing. And I think that's what happens. We all get presented with those opportunities where, and I think it's how you look at them, where the world is like, feels like it's crushing you, and you can either, sit there and allow it to crush you, or say, well, this is that, it's like I don't want to say like a movie, but in the movie, this is where you're telling, like, rise up, motherfucker, rise up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think you feel it. And I think it's crazy but when you're in the midst of it, it's very different, because there's no one there sometimes telling you to get up. You just have to, you just feel it, like, I need to do this.
Yeah. And I think for me, like the night she told me, I had this flash in my head of just eating my Glock. Like, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. And that's when I got on my knees when she left the room, and I just called out to God and was like, I cannot do this. I need you. And there is no way I would have gotten through. I mean, we had a super fast divorce. In the state of Tennessee, when there's children involved, you can be divorced in 90 days. That was her goal. That was her goal, was to hit that 90-day mark. And this is during Christmas time. Eventually, when everything started going down. And so, like, for me, it prepared me by giving my life back to Christ. It prepared me to deal with still being present for my little boy, even though things were starting to fall apart, and to be able to deal with situations where I had to deal with my ex-wife's boyfriend. There's no way I could have done that without God. There's no way, dude. I know me, and I would have probably ended up gotten arrested again. or killed myself. I've done something really stupid. And so without God, I mean, there's no way I would have survived it, man. There's no way.
Well, that's crazy. My friend Eric kind of told me the similar story, like how you said, getting on your knees and praying. He said that he was after his whole little debacle with drinking and then doing heroin, all the coke and all this in the same night. It always stuck with me when he told me it. He said that he got put into a room. They laid him down, like not laid him down, but he had to lay down on this bed, and they had like the lights. What are those lights that make that kind of that sound when they're just the buzzing?
Oh yeah.
Like, and he just said the same thing that he said. He told he prayed to God that he would just wish he would die, that he was just done. He couldn't go any, like he basically, I can't go anymore. And then he woke up and he said that after that he never did drugs again, whatever. Wow. Like that was, and it kind of what you said. I think everyone gets kind of pushed to that moment where it's like it's literally life or death. It's in you, and I think it definitely it's affected by your spiritual, your mental, your physical. The same way I think when an old couple, like if one of them dies, the other one dies soon after. I think if you lose that will to live, you will die. You know what I mean? You may not die like instantaneously, but you'll just physically start just dying. And I think it's almost that maybe that moment to fight. I always like to point at that it's from the Sopranos. You ever watch the Sopranos, the old TV show?
Yeah.
Where Tony's going through like a depression, and some guy's trying to kill him. And when they try to kill him, he ends up killing the guys. And it's I don't know if it was a quote or part of it or someone just added it to it. It was basically said something along the lines of sometimes you don't know you want to live until you're about to die. Like you almost like when that will, then you realize I still do want to live. I still want to prove something. And for you, it kind of seems like your kid, because I know you kind of mentioned him when you're talking about it. And sometimes that is what we're doing things for, is like we kind of realize it's it can be a selfish act to hurt yourself, because really it would just put the same weight that's on you on someone else to now carry. And that's usually going to be your kids. And that just continues the cycle. Now, I guess it kind of, the way I try to look at it, and, and this is not to downplay anyone, for anyone has anyone that committed suicide and they feel some type of way about it. I look at it like, my daughter is 3 and I have my older daughters. I wouldn't put a weight. I would never physically put a weight on them and say, here, you carry this, because I can't. You know what I mean? Like you would have to, it's like, that's not the way it is. And I think that's sometimes what we're doing, but we're doing it in emotional, we're doing it in a spiritual, we're basically throwing all that weight that we feel and saying, here, you carry it. You're 3 years old, pull that shit on your back. Now you drag this shit. And I'm like, as men, we can't do that. I think you have to put your pride aside, go to church, do something different, because to do that that's not what a warrior would do. And I'll take that from the book Resilience, where he talks about, he goes more into about the suicide type of thing with, especially with veterans or law enforcement or men, whatever it be, that if you consider yourself to be a warrior, that is not what you do. That is not the way you do it. Like you need to find another option.
I think you hit the nail on the head, man, about pride. And I think for me, I had to be humbled. So I think God used my experiences to humble me and to show me that all that pride that I carried around didn't do any good. You've got to humble yourself. And so now for me, I look at life, and it's easy. It's easy to be, to have that pride, like, yeah, I'm really good at this, or I want to do a good job. But it's more of, I'm humble enough now to realize, I can't do it all on my own. I need God in my life. And also as a divorced guy and co-parenting, you have to realize that other people come first. It's not just about you. And so you can't carry that pride around. And I had a pastor tell me on an episode, God can't work with pride. He can work with you when you're humble, but if you're prideful, he can't work with that. And I was like, that's a good way to put that. So I had to kind of be brought to a point in my life where, okay, I have to surrender. I can't do this anymore. And it may take hitting rock bottom to get there. Hopefully people listening to this can find that without going through a period in life where they kind of lose everything. And that's really my goal is to share my testimony so people that might be going through something similar can stop and say, hey, whoa, I don't want to end up like that. I want to, take care of it now and maybe make a difference before it's too late,
Also think about what you're doing. I mean, it's basically it's service, right? Like you have your business, you're helping people physically get fit, you're going to church, you talk about that. And me and you, like what we're doing with the podcast is mental. So really those are 3 acts of service. And I think sometimes people think when they give that they're gonna because I think as humans, we're taught like the more we have, the more for us type of thing. Greed, it's like greed or whatever. I mean, but sometimes when you give is actually when you actually feel the strongest. Like you're giving from, I don't know how to really say it other than to like when I tell people about whether it be, the military, law enforcement, you're doing something in your community, podcast with casting, whatever you're doing that you think that helps people, you will sometimes gain value from something that you will never get rich from. I guess that's you know what I mean? You'll gain things from it that you would never gain if you didn't do those things. And those are all acts of service. But you have to put, like you said, your pride, you have to put your ego aside, you have to do it for the right reasons and be able to see and I think it gives you something that is priceless, and that's like losing perspective and kind of insight to like, well, damn, like, we have this conversation, and I think you kind of talking about your history and your past and things like that. For other people may feel like, well, they don't understand what I'm going through, but yeah, obviously, we haven't had some kind of like carefree life where things just worked out perfectly every way that you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And but I think that's what makes people, what good leaders are whether you're seeking to be a better man, it's never going to be easy. It's always going to be some kind of struggle, and that kind of gets us to where we have to be. So, that's very, I think you said, I don't think I would say the same thing. Like I said, that it wasn't, the devil breaking your chair. Sometimes God has to give you he smacks all of us once in a while to put us back in our place.
Well, and I think, the key is to find your purpose. And if you're full of pride, you're not really going to have purpose. You're just going to be living for yourself. And like you said, acts of service and giving back. I think that's really where purpose lies in life. It's helping others and being an asset, not a liability. Because if you're living for yourself, you're not really helping anybody, You're just maybe helping yourself, which is probably going to end up not working out too well in most cases. It's going to catch up to you, eventually.
Was there any from there after that point, is that where you was like kind of led to this, to where you're at now, once you kind of went to that after the divorce and everything finally led you to this point?
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time post-divorce kind of in almost like isolation. I would go to work and I would go to church, but I didn't really go out a lot. I would read, I would listen to podcasts. And so my girlfriend Shelly actually encouraged me she said, you ought to share your story. You could have a podcast. And I was like, what? Like I went on one right as I was in the middle of my divorce. I had someone reach out and say, and I'd like for you to share your story. And I went on it. I was nervous about it because the old me didn't tell people about my job as a cop or what I did when I was drinking and the abuse and stuff that or the alcohol abuse that I had. So yeah, the podcast really kind of came about like for me, it was a way to help other people. And dude, I had no idea what I was getting into. Like, I don't have a background in public speaking. I'm not a tech person. I mean, I'm a trainer by my day job. And so, yeah, it was just a way I felt like, because I don't know how you are, man, but I know in church, we talk about making disciples and spreading the gospel. I don't feel comfortable going out on a street corner with a sign or reading from a Bible or like just going up to a group of people I don't know. For me, I felt like, okay, I can share my story on a podcast, interview other people with a story, and then I can also talk about Jesus. So for me, it's almost a way to spread the gospel, but not be in a pulpit or and on a street corner. So yeah, man, I just want to help. I want to help people. And the biggest thing, one of the coolest things I've learned through this whole journey is like you and I are friends. I'm making a lot of friends doing this that I wouldn't have made without it. And I don't necessarily have those kind of friendships in person because I don't really meet people that are like-minded as much in person. You know, it's kind of wild. It's kind of cool how I've made all these friendships and stuff through this.
Well, I think it's cool because it's the same thing that I know with that's why sometimes people are like, oh, social media does have its bad stuff. It definitely does. But I think for the way that me and you do it, to me, I think we talked about it last time. To me, it's basically like planting our flag. This is a lighthouse. This is what we're doing. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. And it attracts other men that like it, because that's what they're looking for. I think a lot of men are going back to the basics of, working out, eating good. I want to try to be a good man. I want to, I still need to be capable of, defending my family, violence or whatever I need to be able to do that. I'm not they're not trying to be some, fucking soy boy or some shit. Like, also, you know what I mean? It's that balance. And I think a lot of guys resonate with that. A lot of guys resonate with, I want friends that go to church, are trying to be good, that are for the most part good men, but I know that they'll, if we need to kick ass, or they need to defend each other, they will. And a lot of guys, that's how we feel it as men. And a lot of people don't, they've confused a lot of what men need with a lot of what they've been told men need. We don't need to be hyperly emotional. We don't need to be feminine fucking dudes. We don't need, like, we just need to be like, we need to be around other guys that are kind of guiding us towards the right way. And that's why I kind of brought up earlier about, not just letting people be around you that are just taking from you or not stopping you from from doing doing bad things, or just kind of leading you down the path of destruction, because those guys aren't really your friends.
Yeah.
And I think, and one of the, something I had wanted to bring up, what I think is really funny, because I've been seeing this term a lot on social media, where they keep calling everyone bootlickers. They're like, oh, like anyone who supports like the military, law enforcement, I think men in general, right, kind of, which to me is funny, because I think guys like me and you who are telling people, or other men or women, whatever, to acts of service is the way to become strong, physically becoming strong, working out, don't drink, focus on your goals. You don't need, like, you want to be successful, but you don't need to sell yourself short to do it. It's like we're the bootlickers, but telling people to basically be hyperly emotional, believe in nothing, be on every antidepressant from here that's ever been invented, and to not go to church. Somehow they care about you. It's like a mixed, and so I think what we're doing and why we're meeting people that are like that is, I think, because deep down a lot of men and women understand, like, there's a bigger battle going on. I've told a couple guys this, that are, like, it broke, like, more big in the law enforcement space. I said, it's not really about law enforcement to me anymore. This is more of a battle between, like, good and evil. Like, when people are like, oh, you're so, like, political or with faith or this, I said, has nothing to do with law enforcement. It does and it doesn't, in the sense of that there's a bigger battle going on, that if you believe in faith, and you understand that we can't just sit back and be attacked, and we also can't be on the defensive. Like, we're more in the attacking stages right now, what we do. And also that little way sometimes where people, like, when people say, like, hey, let's turn down the temperature. To me, it's the equivalent of saying you're advancing too much. You guys are doing too much now, and now we need to step backward. To me, it's like, no, that just means we need to advance more. I'm not going to listen to what it is, like the devil or saying, hey, you need to let up on me now. Let me, let me. One of the things I learned in leadership, and I tell people this, there are certain people and certain things you deal with that once you're on them, you can't let up. And I think faith and a lot of discipline is one of those things that drive that. Is like, there is no stopping. You can't stop.
Yeah.
Because once you stop, it lets room in for other things to come in, and now you're kind of like, well, okay, let me chill. You know what I mean? Let me. And well, I know you want to bring something up at the end. I want to remind you because you told me to.
Yeah. So I just want to say this. Like, I think for everybody out there that's listening to this, be careful who you follow and the advice that they give, because, John and I have our own space. We're really trying to help people, especially with mental health. And there's some big name podcasters out there that, and we've talked about this off camera, that don't really use their platform, in my opinion, to really help people. It's more clickbait, it's more noise, it's more what can I do to stay relevant, like some of the celebrities do. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger is a good example of this, the fuck your freedom with the mask. I think he did that just to stay relevant because he's old news, and a lot of the generation coming up now don't even watch his movies. But there was a thing that was put out a few months ago, and the post said you have one shot at being a good father, and that's it. And that really bothered me because I consider myself a good dad, even though I have 2 kids from 2 different marriages and I don't see them every day. But I have really busted my ass over the last 4 years of sobriety to be a good dad. And my concern with a post like that is you're operating in a space. This guy is a huge platform. He's operating in a space with predominantly men that are following his every word, that watch every video he puts out. He has a Hollywood style production team. And he goes on social media and says something like that. That might reach the wrong person. That might reach the man that's on the edge of giving up on life, that doesn't feel worthy. And you know what? That man might do something foolish because his go-to podcaster says some stupid shit like that. And I'll just go ahead and say his name. Sean Ryan, you've got the platform to help people. And you had the nerve to put that stupid shit out on Instagram. It's not right, man. It's wrong. I don't agree with that.
No, I can see where you're coming from, because I think the idea behind it is that as men, that if you don't, that somehow if you're not a good father at certain points, and somehow you're just overall a bad dad or a bad father, and it doesn't always work like that, because I think, and this probably comes back to ages of kids, right? I could see some, I don't know, like obviously his situation, but if you have younger kids, because between the time they're younger and the time they're adults, there's a lot of different things that happen with that. And I always tell people, because I have older daughters, right? When you have younger kids, sometimes, depending on your work situation, I said maybe you're working a lot, but you're providing for them financially, but you're not there as much as you would like to be. Would that make you a bad dad? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? Or that's better than not being there because you just don't want to be involved, right? When you get older, when the kids get older in high school, and I'm telling everyone this from experience because my daughters are older. When your kids get older in high school and junior high, sometimes you're going to have a conflict because now they're at the know-it-all stage of what they, as a kid, that we've all been through, right? Where they know it all, right? They're it might as well just be their I know it all. We used to make fun of my daughter when she would always say that I know it all. Me and her mom would talk about it. Well, then when they get older, there's a stage where now they realize when they're becoming parents, now they need your advice, now they need your guidance. And sometimes they're busy. Like I find that, my daughters are busy. Like my oldest daughter, she has her own kids, and my youngest is busy in college. So sometimes you feel like, you're like, you stay in contact with them, but you're like, hey, I wish we would hang out more, but I'm also living my life and doing things that I have to do, and they're also living their life. Does that make you a bad father? You know what I mean? Like, and so some people have this really, they when they say that, sometimes it's like, I think they do is eventually set themselves up for a downfall, right? Because they made this false expectation based off experiences that they've never had. So, and I think that used to help me a lot as being a cop, right? So when we would go, like, and you probably thought the same thing, right? You can go to a domestic, and I used to tell guys, okay, if you've been married or in a long-term relationship, you can go to a domestic and you can understand, hey, they got into a loud argument, nothing physical happened. This is a common thing in a long relationship. Now, if you have, new guy who's never even been in a long-term relationship out of the academy, his longest relationship is his high school girlfriend that he's, you know what I mean? Is he going to have the same perception? It'll be easy for him to sit there and say, hey, you guys should never argue or fight. Me and my girlfriend, we've been into each other since junior high. And so I can get it. I can get a lot of what you're saying from that. It's very, it's a short-sighted thing of, I guess, putting out something like that. Also, I think those guys, like the guys like that, I just think, I never saw when he put that out. I think my only issue with some of those guys lately, and it's not just him, is when going into all these different conspiracy theories, I feel like there's an easy way to help men. And I think the easy way is say, focus on the people who love and care about you. Focus on, the things you believe in, like your faith and your belief, and doing those right things, like working out, not drinking, eating right, and stop focusing on the enemy. Like focus more on winning than focusing on who's your enemy. I did a post a long time ago where I talked about that. I said, I don't care who's in front of me. I care more about who's with me. Because I don't know if you ever had this experience, but when me and my boy Torres used to be in the same zone, and we had our lieutenant that we're close with, I felt like it didn't matter the situation. We could take on anything. I didn't care if it was more people than us. I don't care if it was what calls it was. Like we were so locked in and tight with each other. I was like, bring it on. Like bring whatever you want to bring on, right? Yeah. It didn't matter to me. So to me, a lot of guys think that's where they lose focus. That's like, focus more on the positive and what you need to do, and you'll be ready for any obstacle, instead of focusing on 100 different obstacles and you can't even tell me what you're doing to actually handle it. It kind of becomes overwhelming. And I think that's, if we want to get back to like the faith part, where it becomes confusion, and confusion is not from God. That's from, that's from the devil, right? Yep. Because when you're confused, which way do I go? What do I do? And they, I think that, I feel like sometimes they're being, I'll say manipulated. That's not the word. I think they're just losing sight of what they actually started off doing.
Yeah, I think it's more they're embracing that celebrity status than what maybe their platform started out as. I don't know, but I don't understand it. If you're in a position where you can actually like make a difference and help people, do it. But I think that's where you and I are different, is we're staying authentic in this. And obviously we're not at the same level as someone like that, but what were your intentions to begin with? And what are you doing? I think some of these guys are just trying to be the next big thing. It's like a celebrity thing. And I'm still new in the podcast world. I'm seeing more with it. But I don't really understand the need to be a mega star or a wannabe politician. Like you were saying, the conspiracy theories, I just don't get it, man. Like go into TV if that's what you want to do. I don't understand it. But
yeah, I think definitely it's just I think we've touched on it before. It's just the losing for, they're just, it's like anything. I think it's like any career. And I think we see it a lot in probably law enforcement, where you go into it with good intentions. And then sometimes, you can get caught up, badge heavy type of thing, podcast heavy. Like that's the way you call it in this. And I can see that, but I think that's because me and you are more aware of it. That's what kind of makes it less of a likely thing for us to happen, because I always try to be aware of that, like, hey, doing advertising and getting the podcast out there and different, that is not the same as, it's not, the goal is not to be famous. That's why, if it's like the goal is to like, build up our message and our brand, and ultimately bringing men into like, our experiences and what experiences they bring to it. That's the bigger message. So to me, that's why for mine, it's not called like the John Martinez brand of, it's like, because to me, I think I would like at some point, for, if other people like having doing the podcast with you, I like doing it with my friend Dave. Because to me, it's not really about me. It's more about like us. You know what I mean? And I think when you do that, it kind of keeps you on track, because you kind of are like, we're doing this for each other. We're not just doing this so that I can become famous and we can all become influencers. And
that's a good point. I never thought of that, because his show was named after himself, so that makes sense. I never thought of it that way.
Well, yeah, I pay attention to that just because I don't know. Maybe it's because I think it's just from my own experiences as like working my way up through the ranks, where you would see guys, you give them a little bit of power and authority and they would change. Yeah. And I think that when you look at that, because then the expectation is you're the center of attention. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Where if you have and I'm not saying anyone that has their name in the podcast is wrong or anything like that. I'm just saying, it doesn't really, it's basically like without you, it doesn't exist. So the message is, the man is bigger than the message, where I think our goal is to be, our message is bigger than the man.
We're going to get canceled because we're talking about him.
We're not big enough to get canceled yet.
I don't know, man. We'll probably make somebody mad, but yeah. I don't know.
That was good. Is there anything else you want to touch on for the sobriety thing? I know that was I know that was a lot. That was a lot of.
Yeah, I just think if you're going through that right now in your life, don't feel like that your life is lost or that there's no hope, because anybody, if I could turn my life around, man, anybody can do it. And also, just ask for help. Just know that it takes more courage and strength to ask for help than it does to stay quiet and try to do it yourself. And for everybody listening, just know that Jesus is there. He loves you no matter what you've done, what your past is, and he wants a relationship with you. So don't let your shame or your grief or your past keep you from pursuing a relationship with Christ. Because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. And if you can develop that relationship with him, it doesn't mean your life's gonna be perfect, but it's going to help you get through things that you couldn't normally do without him, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think a takeaway for me from what I liked what you were saying, when you're talking about the marriage and the relationship, you kind of pointed out your own flaws and also like maybe wasn't working in the marriage. I think that's super important because one of the things that I see that's so crazy right now, especially I'm gonna say the anti-men, sometimes people that you hear on social media, you always hear about what the man does wrong, but you never hear about anything that they did wrong.
Yeah.
And if that's your stance on a relationship, then you're what's wrong in the relationship, because that tells that there's no growth and there's not going to be any healing when you refuse to acknowledge like, hey, I could have done things better. I don't, you know what I mean? I think everyone can walk away from every relationship and say, I should have done this better. I didn't like that they did this, but we could have done things differently and maybe had a different outcome, but we didn't. And this is where we're at. And I think that really is what's missing in a lot of the conversations. Like when you're just going to sit there and I think either way, just bash men or bash women, you're not answering a problem. You're not giving a solution. You're just basically like re-emphasizing, here's the problem, here's the problem, here's the problem. And that doesn't ultimately fix anything.
Don't be a victim. Don't be a victim.
Except okay, and I could have done that better. They could have done it better, and we would have been better for it, but it didn't work out that way. I like that way we're talking about it, because I see that a lot of times we're just like they were like, my partner was they were a dirt bag and I was an angel. Shit. But I guess I'll just wrap it up from there, man. It's like, this is a good conversation. So I hope for the listeners, you guys took something from it. I would say easily it's probably one of the deepest podcast episodes I've ever done. Nice. I think you and my friend Eric pretty much, like, as far as we're like doing the podcast with you guys, where it like, I think where I learned a lot from it and your guys' experience. And I know that's not an easy thing to talk about. For anyone who has never done a podcast or or put out your story in public, it is not an easy thing. There's people that have trouble just talking in front of a crowd or talking in front of, it's not an easy thing for people to tell their story. So we appreciate any support like that. And I think we'll leave it from there. Appreciate your story, Steve. Make sure you guys follow him at Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast. He's way more consistent than I am. So is there any other stuff that you wanted to follow or anything to follow you, or where they could find out more about?
Yeah, the big thing is just episodes are on YouTube, Peace, Power, and Purpose podcast on YouTube, and then also over on Spotify if you want to listen to it while you're working out or in the car. And I do 2 episodes a week. Every Wednesday, every Thursday, I drop new episodes. And so my whole platform is men's mental health awareness and talking about Jesus, man. So I'm just trying to help men and women alike out there, but mostly trying to raise awareness for men, because I feel like men still struggle sometimes to embrace the mental health component, to share their story. And so I'm hoping we can kind of change that. You and I both can change that, John, with showing dudes out there that are struggling, like it's okay. It doesn't make you different or weird or odd. It's okay to have issues and to struggle, but reach out, ask for help, and don't do it all on your own. That's the biggest takeaway.
Yes, sir. And then you can follow me at the Good Leader brand on Instagram, the Good Leader podcast on Spotify and YouTube. And the only thing we're here to do is kick ass and chew bubblegum, and we're all out of bubblegum. So
Hell
that's it.
yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
People, if they know that, don't know that what movie that's from, but yeah, we'll go ahead from there. And thank you guys for the support.